British composer Elisabeth Lutyens wrote mostly atonal and serial music. Lutyens, by her own description, was inspired by Debussy and Webern, influences that can be heard in her music. However, her music is by no means derivative of these composers' styles. Lutyens has a voice all her own. Throughout her life, Lutyens suffered with depression, and as an adult, she struggled with alcohol addiction. Further, despite compositional successes later in her life, her works have largely been ignored since her death. The 7 preludes for piano were composed near the end of Lutyens' career, when her music was much more widely accepted. However, much of her music has never been recorded, and her 7 preludes for piano were recorded for the first time in 2021 by pianist Martin Jones as part of a 3-volume set of Lutyens' piano music. Like Prelude No. 1, Prelude No. 2's title, Night Winds, appears at its conclusion, italicized and within parentheses. For any music with an evocative title, like this prelude, I ask students to consider what musical features they might expect out of a piece with this title, and also how they might compose such a piece, what harmonies, form, tempo, meter, motives, rhythms, dynamics, articulation they might use. Setting up the discussion in this way helps students experience the piece as a piece of music first, and not as a puzzle to be solved by labeling row forms and considering the analysis finished. We then listen several times with no score, so students aren't tempted to start looking for row forms. I take whatever time is needed for students to talk about what they hear, how it's similar to or different from what they might have expected out of a piece with this title. Prelude No. 2 is useful as a follow-up to Prelude No. 1 or other entry-level serial piece like Webern's Wie bin ich froh. Pedagogical advantages include novel approaches to serial technique, including near combinatoriality and creative approaches to row completion, use of indeterminacy within a serial context, appropriate level of increased difficulty following Lutyens' Prelude No. 1 or other beginning serial piece. It's easy in some spots, tricky in some spots, and introduces other serial possibilities not found in the first prelude. Finally, due to its descriptive title, there are endless interpretive possibilities that make for compelling classroom discussions. All of the Opus 126 preludes are based on the same row. There are several triadic subsets, including major and minor thirds and 2 interval class 5s. Other prominent subsets include hexachord 0, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 and 0, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. These are retrograde inversion combinatorial hexachords. Tetrachord 0, 1, 2, 5, 0, 1, 3, 4, and 0, 1, 2, 3, and 0, 1, 6, 7. And trichord 0, 1, 4, 0, 1, 6, 0, 1, 5, and 0, 1, 2. Now I will talk through several novel applications of serialism in this prelude. Throughout, I'll reference several motives I've identified in this movement: rumble, cadence, tremolo, melody, and repeated notes. Row P8 appears in measures 37 and 38. Notes 1 through 5 of P8 recur in measure 39, punctuating the phrase with the second cadence chord. Thus, measures 37 through 39 form a palindrome in terms of pitch class. A tremolo motive introduces row R5, which shares 4 invariant tones with the chord in measure 39. The left hand introduces a brief melody before performing a murky tremolo. Measure 43 returns to the indeterminacy that began the movement, which I call the rumble motive. I9 at its retrograde RI9 occur simultaneously, and together omit the middle 2 pitches of each row form, D flat and B flat. These appear as the top 2 pitches of the next chord, which also introduces a new row form, I10. I-10 is incomplete, with only 6 of its pitches occurring at this point. It's followed by RI7 and then RI4. These rows are nearly combinatorial, meaning that a hexachord 1 of RI7 has all but one pitch in common with hexachord 2 of RI4, and vice versa. This relationship results in many invariant dyads between RI7 and RI4. The last 6 measures feature P10 with tremolo and melody motives, and then RI10 with the final cadence motive. Row RI10 completes the incomplete I10 from measure 43. The non-contiguous completion of I10 from measure 43 with RI10 results in a nearly exact repetition of the chord in measure 43 as the Prelude's final resonance. The night winds of Elisabeth Lutyens' Prelude No. 2 are unpredictable, at various turns turbulent and tranquil. Many attributes make it amenable for teaching purposes, especially as a follow-up to a more straightforward serial piece like the first Prelude, including novel row completion strategies and use of indeterminacy. Preludes 3 through 7 offer enticing opportunities for further study. Thank you for watching.